Welcome back, crew. It's January, and that means we are diving into the 13th Age RPG by Pelgrane Press. And today, we're at my favorite part of learning any new system. We're going to go through and show you step by step how to build a character using 13th Age's rules. So, if you're a game master, you'll feel comfortable talking to your players through the process. If you're a player, you'll be ready to rock up to the table with your own new PC. But before we dive into that, do you want to give a quick shout out? We actually changed the date of our live actual play of the 13th Age system. We're going to be going January 30th, which is Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Links below. The old link was updated. If you click notify me before, we'll be going through, putting the system through its paces, and one lucky viewer will get a chance to win a free PDF copy of the RPG to bring home to their table. Yeah, let's dive into it. So, one of the big things I always recommend before building your own PC is you come up with a concept. And one of the things I've heard of this system is the fighters are pretty fun. They give them a little bit more resources, more things you can do than some of the typical fantasy systems. So I wanted to put that to the test. So I thought I'd go with kind of a mercenary who's had a little bit of experimentation done to him. Uh, Fighter class, definitely he's been in some hard scrapes. A little bit charismatic when he needs to, kind of a silver tongue when he wants to break it out. But overall, more rough and tumble, just kind of a tactician style build. So we're going to go through and see how we can build that in utilizing the 13th Age system. So first thing, if you're looking on page 29 of the PDF, we'll get into the character creation overview, which is nice. They give you a little step-by-step description on how to build out a character utilizing 13th Age. So the first thing they recommend is getting your game master input to see what's important. So with this one, we don't have to worry about that since I'm the game master here. But definitely for players, very important because 13th Age has some of its own predetermined lore. The icons being a really big piece of the system. You kind of want to touch base with your GM. Hopefully, have a session zero, or at least have some pre-made campaign docs to see what's going to be important, what relationships, what icons will be out there. But since I'm the GM, we're going to kind of skip that part. The next big piece is we're going to go through and pick our race. One of the cool things that I like with how their system does the races in this setting is you get to choose between two of their attributes and you get a +2 from that. So it kind of opens up a lot of good build options. So you're not going to be locked into what kind of your ancestry's attributes are. You can kind of go through and be a little bit strategic because one of the other nice pieces with it too is your class. Also lets you pick between two attributes for your other +2. So you kind of get to go through and mix and match with your class and your ancestry to kind of see what's going to work best. You can't double them up too, so gives you a little bit of freedom on that side and kind of lets you play a little bit more of what you want with the system. But for our guys, let's check out the races. So they've got like a lot of the typical fantasy fare. You've got elves, you've got dark elves, you've got humans, halflings, dwarfs, orcs, all the typical stuff you'd expect for a fantasy realm. For our guy, for this kind of rough and tumble mercenary, I thought a dark elf would be fun. It's been a little while since I've seen the drow out and about, so I thought I'd pick a dark elf with your ancestry, or I should say races for the system, you get a couple of cool things. As I said, you get to pick between +2 for two of their skills. For our guy, and we're gonna name this guy Ren. We're gonna pick the +2 to charisma because I just want him to be a little bit of a fast talker with a silver tongue. But you also get their racial power. So the racial powers, I kind of treat these like feats. And the reason I mentioned the feat spot because you're gonna see down below there's a champion feat. With this system, there's three feats are broken into three separate categories. Adventure feat, which is kind of open to the first tier of levels. Champion feat, I think is about level 5 and plus, and the epic feat, which I think is about level 8 or plus. But they're broken into those three different tiers that you have, and you kind of go through and pick and upgrade those as you go. So for our guy, we start off with the cruel power. We don't get the champion feat piece yet, but allows us to do once per battle to do some damage to a target. It's pretty cool there. So we've got cruel or racial power. We've got our race. Fairly easy. So nothing too crazy you have to pick out outside of that. But now that we've got our race, we're going to go back and figure out our attributes. So with this system, there's two ways you can go about your attributes. You can do rolling if you like to roll them out, or you can do point buy. So I love a lot of the OSRs, and the OSRs are always rolling. But if point buy is an option, that's always been my go-to. So we're going to do point buy for Ren. And with this, you'll see if you've played 5e, you're very familiar with this. I think even similar cost. If I'm looking at it right. Actually, a little bit different, but you can go through and pick out what your Attributes would be you've got 28 points to spend for all six of your attributes. So kind of be intentional with that. And remember, this isn't including your plus twos that you get from both your class and your ancestry. And we picked a plus two to charisma. So for our guy, we're going to spend 10 points on strength. He's a fighter. He's going to be kind of rough and tumble, heavy armor, big weapon. So we're going to go 16 there. We're going to spend or spend 4 points to go with a 12 in dexterity, 6 points to go for a 14 in constitution. We're having intelligence being our drop stat. We're going to go with wisdom plus two, and then or 10, which will be a plus two cost. And then we're going to go charisma 14 plus six cost for our 28 points, and our attributes for Ren. So very easy on that side. If you've done 5e, if you've done some of the other systems that do point by, this will be old hat for you. So now that we've got that, we're going to go through and pick out our class. And then, as I said, don't forget to add our plus two. We're going to add our plus two to charisma from our racial feature, and then we're going to add plus two to strength from our class feature. And now that we got that, we're going to go and pick out our class. So I wanted to do a fighter for this system. I've heard good things about it. And one of the nice things, too, we're going to pop over there as well. Is they have like this really cool spot where you can kind of see what they rank the classes from ease of play. But I think every system should do this. Pathfinder, I'm looking at you. I feel like this would be great for new players to see how complex it is to play this class. And allow them to kind of go through and gravitate to the complexity that best suits their play style. With this, you kind of see it ranks from kind of what you'd expect from the warriors down to the sorcerer, the spellcasters. So you've got that. You see kind of fighters. Oh, so it's actually a little bit complex with some of the things you get to add into it and build on that side. So I'm kind of happy to see that. I typically lean towards more martial characters, usually Gishy. I thought this would be fun for 13th Age. So with that, now that we see that, a couple of big things you got. As I said, customization, they're very lenient about allowing you to kind of customize these if you work with your game master. If there's a certain feat with the bard that fits your fighter well, you can kind of go through and mix and match, but you need to work with your game master and make sure you build it out properly and not try to min-max it. But I do like that they kind of have that built in there, especially since multi-classing isn't a thing for the system. Other big piece, you get your spell progression, your weapon damage kind of progression, which is kind of sick. I wish I was playing at a little bit of a higher level for our one shot. 'Cause I want to kind of see how that math goes, or you kind of see how it plays at the table. Because each time you get a level up, you get a whole additional weapon dice damage. So if you're using a D8 spear in the system at level one, it's just one D8. Level two would be two D8, all the way up to level 10 for the system, so you can be rolling 10d8. Which I think is kind of cool. You get to really kind of see that progression with your character, get to roll a lot of dice, especially as a marksman, where you don't usually always get to roll a lot of dice. So I think that's pretty interesting. I'm kind of curious to see how it plays out. Uh, Last big thing we'll go over before we get into our fighter stuff is your class determines a lot with this system. So a lot, if you're coming from 5e, this may throw you off a little bit, but definitely something to kind of take a look at because you get your base HP, which for most of you that's going to be old hat. But it also determines your starting or your base EC, I should say, before you get to add in some of your modifiers. So you see each class has a different one, the fighter, and they assume with these classes that you're kind of utilizing the best armor option for them. For the fighter, they assume you're wearing heavy armor. But you see, it kind of starts you off with the base AC, and you could go in and add your additional kind of modifiers to that once you have that AC. It also gives you your base physical defense, base mental defense, and background points, as well as your recovery dice, which, if you're kind of new to the system, think of them as hit die from 5e. You kind of roll them at certain points to be able to regain some of your HP. So pretty similar, but pretty different. It's like, because your class matters a lot more with this system and kind of what you can do there. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into Fighter. So it gives you a little bit about their play style, the ability scores you can go for. So with this one, you could go for Strength or Constitution as your ability increase. I decided to go for Strength for our guy. Um, there's some of the races that could be a good fit for that, as well as your backgrounds. We're going to go to backgrounds pretty heavily a little bit later, but it also gives you some good background options that'd be kind of fitting for a character of this type. Uh, with these, you also go through, you get to pick your talents as well as maneuvers with fighter, which I thought was pretty cool. So I wanted our guy to be pretty scrappy. So we're going to go through and take a look at some of the AC options. You see, it has it broken out between if you have heavy armor, light armor, we're taking the heavy armor. This is something that confused me a little bit too, so I wanted to call this out. The game kind of presumes you start with the heavy armor and you can flavor it, and you gotta see, I think they give you some options here to kind of what that may look like. You see like the chainmail, resilient scale mail. I was looking, I thought you'd have to go through and kind of purchase your armor on the side, but no, you start off with it and kind of get to flavor it as you like there. Kind of similar with the melee weapons. They give you some options on this that'd be a good fit for your PC. I'm going two-handed. I'm doing a D8 spear. But you kind of go through and check that option, and the damages are pretty broken in with that. So you got the daggers at 1d4, short swords, hand axe at d6s, and all those way through. And then they kind of give you the breakout of the base attack. So one of the things with 13th Age you'll notice is that a lot of your abilities, resources like AC, which we'll get to the calculation in a bit, you add your level into it. So you see with your attack to hit, you're going to be doing strength plus your level versus the customer, or not the customer, versus the enemy's AC. And then when you hit, you're going to do your weapon plus your strength damage. It's fairly straightforward on that side. You also see they kind of give you a breakdown of all the different things you get. So with our character, we're going to get 3 maneuvers, 3 class talents, and then 1 adventurer feat, which we'll pick a little bit later. So with that, let's go through and pick our class talents. So for this guy, I wanted him to be kind of tactical, but definitely kind of just a brawler style, or kind of a heavy style fighter. So with that, for his talents, I picked counterattack. We can use once on an even hit, which even hit, if it's confusing to you, don't worry. We're going to do a mechanics episode later this week that's going to go into that and kind of break that down. And you kind of see this one has adventure all the way through epic feats for it. We're also going to do heavy warrior, just really kind of making the most of his heavy armor. And then finally, we're going to do power attack because he can go through and lay some pretty solid damage on it. With that, so we picked our three. Talents. You also get to go through and pick 3 maneuvers as well. These kind of come through after the attack has been rolled. You decide whether you, if after you hit or not, if you want to employ these. So for these, I wanted to give him some things that can kind of make some additional opportunities from him and his party. So I gave him or carve an opening, which allowed him to expand his crit range. I gave him deadly assault, which allows him to kind of uh, give a little bit more damage or a little bit more re-rolls in case he has a bad roll on something. And then I also picked the heavy blow, which lets us add a little bit more damage to our attacks. And there, we built out our fighter for at least the class side. So we get to pick the 3 maneuvers, the 3 talents, and the talents. Each of the classes kind of has the talents, spells, powers, or for the fighter's case, maneuvers. So each of them get to pick that. So the talents kind of are what makes your PC fit into the class and kind of gives them some more of that design there. But we've gotten that portion built out. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back a little bit, and we're going to go through and build our background, as well as look at some of the calculations of how these stats work. So let's start with the stats. The first thing we're looking at is HP. HP is super simple. With that, you basically take your class's base stat for your HP, and then you add your Constitution modifier to it. And then once you have that, you multiply it by 3. So definitely what some people may need the calculators for there, but luckily it should be too crazy at level 1. So our guy ended up with 30 because he had a base of 8, Constitution modifier of 2, and then times 3. Once you have that, you get to go through and figure your AC. So this is something that's a little bit unique. So I wanted to pause here a little bit just to make sure we kind of get this correct. I feel like this is a different type of rule that could lead to some confusion. Unless you're playing on a virtual tabletop, shout out to Foundry, who does that math for you. Because with AC physical defenses and mental defenses, you actually don't you figure it a different way. You're going to be looking at the middle value between 3 different options of your stats. So let's pick on HP or AC first. So the AC, you get to choose between, or you get to pick between Constitution, Dexterity, and Wisdom. You're going to be looking at your modifier, and you're going to pick the middle modifier. So let's go for extremes just to make this make sense. So let's say your dexterity is at a 5, your wisdom's at a 0, and your constitution's a +2 for your modifier. You would pick your constitution because it's in the middle of your 2 modifiers. And that's always going to be. And don't think middle like you have to like do some division. Just pick whatever options kind of in between the other two. If you ever have a case where you have two stats with the same modifier, you would just pick that one because it's always going to be kind of your middle there. So let's go for our guys. So we had Constitution, Dexterity, and Wisdom. So our Dexterity is a +1. Our Constitution is a +2. Our Wisdom is a +0. So we are going to be going with our Dexterity, a +1. Fairly easy on that side. And then with that, we are going to be able to add in our level to it. So we'll get a +3 for our guy. Or sorry, +2 for our guy. With that physical defense, very same thing. You get to go with the middle value of your strength, constitution, and dexterity. You add that modifier to your base physical defense, and then you add a +1 to it. Same thing for mental defenses, except with your intelligence, charisma, wisdom. And then initiative, super easy. It's just your dexterity modifier plus your level. So keeps it easy. So now that we've got that portion, we're going to jump into, we're going to go bounce around a little bit. We're going into our background. I think that's one of the more unique aspects of 13th Age. If you're coming from a lot of D20 systems, you're going to be used to having kind of skills, so you can bust out when a roll needs to come up. But in this game, you have background points. Most classes will start with 8. Our fighter Ren as well. And you go through and utilize those to come up with different backgrounds for your PC. You can use some of the suggested ones, like you saw with Fighter, or you can kind of just go things that may be fitting for your guy. So for Ren, he was a mercenary for quite a bit of time. So we're gonna give him 4 points in mercenary. And what this means, so we got 4 points in mercenary, and basically when a skill roll comes up, or something comes up in the adventure where you need to make a skill check, you're gonna try to your game master will probably give you the attribute, and then you're gonna try to match something, one of your backgrounds to the attribute to see why you'd be good at that. And if you're able to convince your game master that this is true, you'd be able to add whatever points you have in it to your attribute and your d20 roll. So, for instance, for our mercenary, let's say we're doing looking at different sigils from mercenary companies and seeing if our guy can spot and kind of figure out what sigil belongs to each company. It'd probably be either intelligence or wisdom. We'll say intelligence. We'd add our intelligence attribute plus our 4 from the mercenary and then roll our d20. So for our guy, we're going 4 in a mercenary, 2 in a survivalist. He's definitely kind of one that's been known to be able to survive off the land, survive on his own fairly well. And then we're going 2 in a tactician. While he's not the smartest guy, he's definitely been in some hard scrapes and knows kind of how best to kind of array himself and his allies against the threat. So now we've got our background piece. And don't worry, we're going to go into backgrounds a little bit more depth during our mechanics video since they play heavily into skill checks. But that's kind of the gist of it. Now the last big thing that we're going to touch on for building our own PC, because we've went through the checklist. We've got our race, we got our class, we generated our abilities, got our combat stats. But one of the nice things or unique things that this system comes up is you're going to develop one unique thing for your character. So one thing that kind of sets them apart, and this is something you get to really kind of have ownership of. So you get to kind of just really kind of go into it. So make sure you kind of run it by your game master as well, but something that unique that tells about your PC and kind of what sets them apart from other heroes. So for our guy, we're gonna get into icons a little bit later, but the Archmage was kind of what I thought was interesting. We're gonna say that he was a mercenary for a time for the Archmage, but the Archmage involved him in one of his experiments, and that forever changed him. Uh, Granting him his unique strength, but also disfiguring his skin a little bit and kind of giving him golden scales that comes across on his Drow skin. That's our unique thing for our guy. And that's one of the last big pieces. So let's go back to the character creation because the only thing that we've got left is our icon relationships. So the icons are huge for this system. We're actually going to be doing a whole video just on the icons and kind of how to build them into your world. But 13th age, there's 13 icons, and these can be people that range from people that are allies, quest givers, kind of important to your PCs, to enemies, to people that are just in between. So, with the icon system, you get 3 points to spend to kind of build your relationship out with your icon. And you see that they have it kind of split on this side between positive relationships, all the way down to conflicted and negative relationships. So, for our guy, he's going to have a conflicted. relationship with 1 point spent for the Archmage. And you get to see like they have it for like kind of the heroic icons, ambiguous and villainous. And they show you kind of what you get for having a positive, conflicted, or negative relationship. I was torn between negative and conflicted, but I feel like he probably still uh, may not just hate this guy, but it's definitely a harsh reality relationship, especially after this experiment went wrong. And then for him, he's been trying to, after the experiment went wrong, he's kind of given up his mercenary ways, but trying to do some good works. And his golden scales have attracted him to the golden worm. So we're gonna say that he's got a +2 positive relationship with the golden worm, and that's spent our 3 relationship points that we start off with for our icons. And you'll see with these ones, you kind of get, it gives you allies and different relationships and kind of lets you get a little bit of a reputation with certain factions. It's kind of a cool way to build into the system. And what I'm looking forward to seeing with the one shot, having all my players pick one icon and we'll figure out kind of who the enemy is after that icon for the one icon to ally with, and we'll figure out who the one that they're going to be against is. But I think it's kind of a cool way to kind of everybody dialed into certain factions within the world to start the game off. So, really cool. Yeah, that's just a quick run through of how to build a PC. I'm also going to show off the character sheet in Foundry as well. Shout outs to Pelgrane Press and 13th Age. I forget what SRD standard rules are free. So what that allows them to do for Foundry is to put all the cool stuff you need into the system for no cost at all. You can go through and pull your feats, your features, all of that in without having to kind of break a sweat for it, or pay $20 for it. So shows you her character. You see Ren there, Drow, has got 30 HP, shows you his breakdowns too. So this is one of the nice things too, is you don't have to worry about doing the middle value thing. If you go through with Foundry, it'll automatically calculate it, but if you're playing in person, just keep that in mind. But yeah, we got everything in there. Seriously, shout outs to the founder team. It was very easy to go through and build this. Yeah. Definitely shout out in the comments too. Some of your favorite character builds, 13th Age. We only kind of scratched the surface to level one, especially going to fighter. And you want to check out the magic side of it a little bit too. But shout out some of your favorite kind of just resources or just different things with building a 13th Age character. Or if you have some fun, unique things, I think that's a really like, GMs encourage your players to get creative with it and definitely note down what they do. I find this is a kind of a really good way to kind of bring them into the world and really kind of figure out what they want for their character. But overall, we built red shout outs to the Foundry team, but definitely let us know what you thought below. And come through on January 30th, next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, as we jump into our live play of the 13th Age system and get to see how everything works in play. But thanks for hanging out, and until next time.